ever question in the House of Commons, I'd like to thank the people of Kildonan and St. Paul. They elected me on a mandate to fight for everyday Canadians, and that's exactly what I plan to do. Mr. Speaker, as we know, there are troubling economic times on the horizon, and as we heard today, this government's only plan is to spend more taxpayer dollars. And yet, while reckless government spending is at a record high, it has done nothing to help people get ahead. Nearly half of all Canadians are only $200 away from not being able to pay their bills. Meanwhile, this Liberal government is only making life more expensive and jeopardizing the lives of, or the futures of everyday Canadians and young Canadians. And while extra costs might not matter to millionaires like the Prime Minister and many of his colleagues, we know that Canadians cannot afford life getting more expensive. That is the reality, Mr. Speaker. Can the member opposite tell us why the Liberal agenda is so out of touch with the financial challenges facing Canadian families? It would have been difficult to predict over 150 years ago the shared vision of Canada's founding fathers, who gathered to create a dominion from sea to sea, would have led to a 29-year-old woman delivering the first speech of the new year and the new decade in our House of Commons. As a first-time elected representative, it was a special moment for me to hear Canada's Governor-General deliver the speech from the throne. Amid all the pomp and circumstance, I couldn't help but think back to my humble roots and how far I've come. Mr. Speaker, I was born to 4 generations of Canadian farmers in a small town in eastern Manitoba. My family were prairie pioneers, and their lives were built on sacrifice, on struggle, and on principles of personal responsibility and resilience. So no answer yet again, and the list of perfectly legitimate businesses that are falling through the cracks continues to grow, and the employees that depend on these jobs are seeing their opportunities evaporate along with them. Canadians are seeing their favorite neighborhood businesses go bankrupt and close permanently. And all this Liberal government has told them is, sorry, you're not eligible. Further, this government has spent over $200 billion in debt on the pandemic response effort, and yet they refuse to allow Parliament to operate effectively. They won't even release a financial update. It's ridiculous. Instead, we have this pale shadow of what Parliament once was, with a fraction of the accountability it once had. Canadians have a right to know the damage that's been done and the magnitude of the decisions happening now. Those answers should come from Parliament, just as they always have for over 150 years, Madam Chair. And although the other parties seem happy to avoid their responsibilities to Canadians, the Conservative opposition will be here fighting to hold the Liberal government to account every chance we get. It is our duty to Canadians, Madam Chair, and I'm honoured to contribute to that effort relentlessly on behalf of my constituents. Mr. Chair, it's hard not to feel disappointed in your government when every day there's a new scandal. Does the Prime Minister believe it was ethical to award a near $1 billion exclusive contract to his friends at We Charity, yes or no? Under this Liberal government, Health Canada is permitting dozens of large-scale medical cannabis grow-ups with hundreds of plants to operate in the suburbs of my riding. One family suffered a break-in after their home was mistaken for the grow-up next door. Health Canada is refusing to share critical information that law enforcement needs in order to shut down any illicit grow-ups. Medical cannabis can be grown safely, but there is a loophole that is impacting the safety and the quality of life of my constituents. Will the Health Minister be putting their needs first and close the loophole immediately? There was a lot of hype generated from the Liberal benches for this speech, particularly because the Prime Minister prorogued Parliament with the excuse that his government needed 6 weeks off from parliamentary duties to formulate it. But in reality, there wasn't a whole lot new in this throne speech. In fact, it was mostly recycled Liberal promises from the past 30 years. If you take childcare, for example, and pharmacare, I was but a very small child in the 1990s when the Liberals first announced that they were going to do this. So that's 30 years ago. So from that perspective, the Liberals really have no credibility on any of these priorities that they've promised in the throne speech, and I'm certain many Canadians would agree. But perhaps the 6-week prorogation in the middle of the worst health and economic crisis in a century was really to avoid the $1 billion We scandal, or the resignation of the finance minister, or possibly the Prime Minister's third ethics violation investigation. Maybe. In conclusion, Canadians expect Conservatives to face this unprecedented challenge head-on. and to put forward a robust and inspiring vision for the future of this country that ensures national unity, prosperity, and that we are once again respected on the world stage. We understand the sufferings of working people because we are working people, and we will champion their ambition to be successful and to support their families in a free society. Canadians deserve a government that will lead them through the difficulties we face. They deserve a government that is steady, reliable, responsible, ethical, a government that thinks outside the box and allows the choices of Canadians to reign supreme in their lives. And that's why I love our new caucus mantra, courtesy of our leader, per ardua ad astra, through adversity to the stars. Conservatives will show Canadians that we are a government in waiting. And as a shadow minister, I have been entrusted with the responsibility to fulfill my role with respect, professionalism, the pursuit of excellence, and the duty to fight for everyday Canadians, and that's exactly what I plan to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.